All right, good morning. This is the January 9th, 2024 Cottage Grove Economic Development Meeting, which I'm calling to order. Our first order of business will be roll call, and G, or Gretchen, will take us through that.
Thank you. EDA member Sheeta,
Here.
EDA member Scott,
Here.
EDA member Myers,
Present.
EDA member Baptiste,
Here.
EDA member Carey,
Here.
EDA vice president Olson,
Here.
EDA president Bailey.
Here. So where everybody's here this morning, and I should just mention to the board, I know he was going around introducing himself, but each year, as mayor, I get to appoint members from the council to be liaisons or such to the different commissions. And Councilmember Olson was my choice for vice president of the EDA. So I just want to mention that that's why Councilmember Olson is here. So welcome, Councilmember Olson.
Thank you.
All right. Next is number 3 is approval of the minutes. We have the minutes for the 12th of December 2023. One item of correction that was caught before after it was sent out, and that is Jean Baptiste was not actually here at the last meeting, but he was noted as saying he was here, not you, but the staff noted it on the form that he was, the minutes that he was here. And so there is an amended meeting minutes that shows that he was absent at last month's meeting. So I just wanted to mention that note to the EDA board here before we look for a motion and a second to approve.
Move to approve the amended minutes.
All right, so we have a motion by EDA Vice President Olson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by EDA Member Carey. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next is number 4, which is business items, and we've got a variety of items here. So we'll start with 4.1, which I don't think we have one actually, which is the Beige book report, unless you got an update. So there is no Beige book report for this month. 4.2 is development update, which I know we do have that. So Gretchen, why don't you take us through this?
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
As Mayor noted, the the Beige book is not in your report because it'll be ready again in February. So we're going to start off with the development updates. O to B Kids, their foundation work has been completed and the framing has started, so they're moving along quickly. Hemingway Retail Center, work is nearing on completion for the facade improvements. And next we move on to the interior. So the tenant, one of the tenants, Duncan Baskin Robbins, their trade work continues on their build out. Honenstein's, the exterior wall panels have been completed and construction of the roofing steelwork is underway. The View Apartments, the temporary certificate of occupancy has been issued, as you know, with a minor punch list of items needing to be addressed before a complete C of O is issued. Some other development updates, Trellis, which is now going to be Blue Stem Apartments. The plans are under review for their new affordable senior living project at 7601 79th Street South. Norhart, their plans have been submitted for the new market rate apartment building to be located at 10251 Hadley Avenue. Trade Home Shoes, they've received a letter of approval that has been issued for the mezzanine and the lower level offices as part of their expansion. And then Cottage Grove Logistic Park, 7601 100th Street, the finishing work has begun for their speculative office. And then in their adjacent building, the office build-out is completed, but they're waiting on electrical to finish the project. And of course, this is always the great work of your community development department. And we're happy to answer any questions on those projects. I don't believe Emily is here, just in case you have any questions for her.
All right, so any questions on anything EDA? The only thing that wasn't on here, which maybe it's going to be brought up, I even had a question this morning at Starbucks when I was there. The Chase Bank is going at the empty spot next to Culver's. That seems to be the question of the day with the fencing going up there. So that is a pre-approved bank that's going to be going in there. So I thought I'd throw that in there because he got asked again this morning, so it's kind of cute.
Well, and we're going to write an article about that as well.
Yeah, there you
Public
go.
an update.
Yeah,
Amongst
sounds good.
other things.
All right, anything else? All right, seeing none, I will move to 4.3, which is the TIF District Plan and Establishment of TIF number 1-21 for the Roers Cottage Grove Apartment LLC. I'll turn it back to you.
So the city received a public financial assistance request from Roers Development seeking TIF assistance for their proposed development at 6850 East Point Douglas Road. The council received a project presentation in October. The developer originally proposed to construct a 144-unit mixed-income multifamily apartment project with 20% of the units at 50% AMI. During those discussions, and based upon the desire of the city to make the project even more affordable, Roers increased their affordability to include 8 units at 60% AMI, along with some naturally occurring 70% AMI and 80% AMI units. And the chart below on the screen shows you the mix of the apartments that are going to be available. As a result of the additional affordability, the team at Ellers, your financial consultants, had to run another analysis about the project, and they concluded that the TIF assistance for no more than 15 years with a present value of $1.96 million was warranted. So that's the background on the TIF itself. Moving on, this is the actual site on your screen to the right. The proposed TIF plan modifies the development program for Development District Number 1 of the city and establishes TIF 121. And to complete the process, the TIF district, the EDA requests that the city council will hold a public hearing on the proposed modification to the development program for Development District Number 1 and the proposed establishment of the Tax Increment Financing District 1-21, which is what we're talking about, at their January 17th, 2024 City Council meeting. So then that will, if approved, that will complete the process. Right now, the EDA is still considering the creation of the district, which gives you authorization to use tax increment to pay for certain qualified costs in the project. These could include site improvements and preparation, public utilities, other qualifying costs, interest, and administration. The Resolution 2024-02, which is in your packet, authors the creation of an interfund loan for up to $25,000 from the EDA's EDA fund to be transferred to your TIF fund to pay for a portion of the qualified costs. As the TIF is then generated and received, the EDA fund is repaid and the interfund loan is retired. The whole purpose of the fund is to require so that the EDA is made whole from future TIF payments for the project itself. Also included in your packet is a contract for private development, and that's the formal contract between the EDA and Roers Cottage Grove Apartments LLC. That contract defines the terms, the agreements, the improvements, the restrictions, all that must be made by Roers in order to receive TIF payments. The agreement also includes a look-back provision to ensure that the assistance is right-sized, and a separate agreement for the sale of Outlot A to the developer for $28,000 will be considered as the project moves forward. And if you look at the schematic on your screen, you can see Outlot A in green, and then the next item, Outlot C and D, which are city-owned stormwater ponds. They're proposed to be deeded to the developer as a part of the project. So you'll see D and C marked there as well. And with that, there is a recommendation before you. You can take it all in one motion if you so choose, meaning adopt the resolution, adopt the other resolution, 0102, and then adopt the development agreement. Shane Rutledge with Ellers is here if you have questions about the actual TIF agreement. And then Travis Faulchild, representing Roers, is also here.
All right, thank you, G. Questions by the EDA, at least for staff at this point? Councilmember Olson.
Thank you very much. G, I noticed in the previous slide that you indicated that there's a look-back provision to ensure assistance is right-sized, and I know that's a common thing. But just for the public watching at home, could you perhaps explain a little bit, or maybe Brenda or Jennifer could explain a little bit about what exactly that look-back provision is and why we do it?
Actually, we would have Shane do that with
Okay,
Ellers.
perfect. That'd be great. Thanks. Make
you,
it worth
Shane.
your while to be here this morning, Shane. Thanks.
Thank you, members. Do we call you Mr. Mayor this morning, or do we call you something else?
No,
this
that's
morning?
fine.
Thanks. It's a great question. So we have a look back in the development agreement for this project, which, as you said, is typical for most of the communities that we work with, and they come in a lot of different flavors. In this one, we have 3 look backs actually. There's a look back at the time that construction is complete to make sure that the construction costs are in line with how we did the analysis for public assistance, and if the construction cost comes in cheaper, which hasn't been happening much lately, then the assistance would be downsized to accommodate that savings. The second look back is there's a look back at stabilization. So when they're leased up, their first leases are signed, they're over 90% occupied, we take a look at the performance of the project. So how is it going to do over time? And then we do another right size calculation to make sure that the TIF assistance wasn't provided in excess of what was needed to get the project done. And then the last one comes into play if the project is sold. And so there's a forced sale provision in there as well. Sometimes that happens and sometimes that doesn't, because sometimes developers and owners hold projects. And so that's the third look back, is look back on sale. That's also a performance look back. It's once the construction cost is done, once the project is stabilized, and if they sell it and they say, and we look at it and say, oh, geez, you know, they did really well on the sale, then some of the TIF assistance is shaved off. Or, oof, nope, they took a bath in this thing and TIF assistance was necessary. Maybe more was necessary, but we don't adjust it up in that situation.
Thank you. So it's fair to say that these look-back provisions actually provide a degree of security to the EDA and or the city relative to how much assistance the project may be qualified for based on their performance, et cetera. So it ensures that we're really protecting the public trust in a few different ways. It looks like we've got 3 different look-backs here to ensure that the TIF isn't too big for the project, and in fact, if indeed the project is going to come in at under budget, as you said, maybe not so common right now, but it's happened, that less TIF assistance will be required. Is that accurate?
Yes, Mr. Mayor/President, members, Commissioner Olson, yes, that's correct. Yep.
Okay, perfect. Thanks so much for the explanation.
Is there any other questions for him up there?
I guess I don't know who my
Yes.
question's for.
Okay,
but,
Mr. Cheetah.
have we done a study on how many apartments Cottage Grove can sustain? Seems like we've been building a lot of them recently.
The answer is yes. I'm not sure who I want to kick that to.
Mayor and members of the EDA, I think it's a great question. Obviously, we have a lot of demand in the market, and I'd probably ask Roers to speak to the marketability in their analysis, but also at the City Council strategic plan on Saturday, they also authorized staff to proceed with a housing study to specifically look at the market and what gaps or trends we're seeing in it to ensure sustainability. But I would ask the applicant to probably talk about their analysis related to their project and what they see as viable in the marketplace today.
Yeah, if you want to come up, then that way can help him and the rest of us.
Good morning, members, or mayor and members of the EDA. My name is Travis Fouchfield with Roers Companies, and it's a great question. As you've mentioned, there's a lot of multifamily being built in the city of Cottage Grove and elsewhere in the Twin Cities and nationwide. And, we're not concerned with the supply that's coming online due to the, affordability of the units here. We have 20% of our units set aside at 50% AMI and then several units at 6% AMI, with the remainder of units being intentionally below market rate rents. So we feel that by offering a market rate quality unit at a lesser price, there shouldn't be concerns with lease up. And we believe that other, tenants and residents living in market rate communities would want to live here for the, lesser price. We want to do that to incentivize, people to move into our projects for them to remain full. Another thing we do is we rely on a lot of third-party reports, Novogradac market studies and local market studies to make sure we're proposing projects in the right places with demand. And we found that, similar to the housing study, there is a lot of, pent-up demand that still exists. And, we're long-term owner-operators, and our property management company will be the ones that are going to be managing this property. So, that's kind of the homework in the background for for our rationale to make this investment here.
Mr. Cheetah, did you
Fair
anything
enough.
else?
And my only other question is a technical one. You're planning to use 57% class 1 and 2 materials and then 53% class 3 materials? That's 110%.
Yeah, I would have to, connect with our architects and make sure we have those numbers correct before our city council meeting. But yeah, our intent is to use a lot of class 1 materials and a lot of glass and stone. But we'll have to revisit those percentages.
Yeah, fair enough. Just caught it and was like, that didn't make any sense, so.
Yeah, we figured more of the class 1, materials the better. So, but understood we can't go in above 100%.
Well, you could, but you'll have to
They
help
might
the
sit
guy
on the
next
side of the
door.
building. Yeah.
All right, anybody else have any questions? Yes, ED Member Scott.
Yes, I just have one question about traffic. I know there's just a lot of traffic in that area, and I know it was addressed in our packet, but again, for people watching, there's a lot of traffic in that area, and I just want to ask a question about, do we think that the traffic management there is enough to be able to handle that amount of cars? There was 144 units, I believe, in that building.
Mayor, members of the EDA, that's a great question. It's one that's always asked when we see increased development in kind of those infill lots. I know at the Planning Commission, they got a more detailed analysis with the engineers talking about the traffic. But when you look at that local street, the fact that the street itself that it feeds onto can support those 144 units, even if you assume 5 trips per day from each of them, which would be equivalent to a single-family residential property. They feed out onto Hardwood. Hardwood has average daily traffic that can support over 15,000 cars a day, and we haven't hit that. The engineers will tell you, though, we are closely monitoring the Hardwood Court intersection on Hardwood, as we see, and as the mayor mentioned this morning with Chase Bank feeding into that, and if we have any congestion or backups related to that traffic signal. I'll also say that we'll see an improvement at Hardwood and 80th in 2026 as we make improvements to 80th Street and the lane configuration there. So given all of those improvements, we don't anticipate that this project would cause any negative traffic impacts at this time.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep. All right, so EDA, unless you have additional questions for staff at this point, there are 3. Did you say we can do all 3 together?
Can do all 3 at once.
Okay, I mean, if somebody on the EDA wants to make a motion to approve all 3 recommendations that before you with one vote, you're welcome to do that. Otherwise, we can break them into individuals. It's totally up to whoever wants to make a motion.
Mayor, I'll move that we adopt Resolution 2024-01 approving a modification to the development program for Development District Number 1 and adopting a tax increment financing plan for Tax Increment Financing District Number 1-21, which is Roers. In addition, I'll move to approve Resolution 2024-02, authorizing an interfund loan for the advance of certain costs in connection with Tax Increment Financing District Number 1-21, known as Roers. And finally, Mayor, I'll move to authorize the contract for private development by and between the Cottage Grove Economic Development Authority and Roers Cottage Grove Apartments LLC substantially in the form attached.
All right, so I have a motion by EDA Vice President Olson. Do I have a second?
Second that motion.
Okay, I think I'll grab this if you're okay. So seconded by Jean Baptiste, EDA member Jean Baptiste. Any further discussions or comments? All right, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Motion carries, I believe it's 5-1. 5-1, yeah. Okay, all right. Thank you guys for coming and thanks for showing up this morning. All right, next then is we'll go to 4.4, which is Dowdle Art Program. And G, you're gonna take us through this.
Thank you, Mayor. So we have some updates since the last meeting that occurred on January 3rd when we were at a city council workshop. And the list of 20 unique people and 50 places and things to include in the painting were presented to council for consideration. And they reviewed and finalized a list. Next step, staff is working with the departments to gather photos of the people, places, and things to help the Dowdle team visualize the painting potentially. Our GIS technician will create a map with all the places and things on it to, again, help them see how all those elements might come together in the painting. And then we're also gathering historical information about the people, places, or things that the things that may no longer exist, but they may be important to telling your story, like a business that was once very popular, like the Cottage View Drive-In and those types of things. Then right after that meeting, 2 days later, the staff met with the Dowdle team to provide them the list and then talk about the next steps. So we've confirmed that the artist Eric Dowdle will visit the city January 16 through 18, so that's next week. We hope, if all works as planned, that on January 16th, when he gets into town, we'd be able to take him on select visits, think Hope Glen, Ice Arena, Shepherd Farm, so he could meet some of those folks and see those areas. Then the next day, on the 17th, during the morning hours, the key staff members would take him on a tour around the city to again acclimate him to all the places. And then this specifically, which involves the EDA and all the other boards, on January 18th, the morning of, at River Oaks from 8 to 10, we will have a breakfast. We will host a breakfast, and then everybody, all your boards and commissions, including the EDA, and the people who are proposed to be in the painting are invited to that breakfast. So we'll finish those invites today. And so that just kind of gives the artists a chance to just hear from all of you about the painting, about the city, why we're unique, special, interesting, fun, and he really enjoys doing that. And then he'll do a little bit of, in between all of this, he'll do a little bit of going on his own and talking to people, just walking around, thinking about stuff. And then next step after that, we have to meet next week to begin the discussions about the marketing plan and of course the point of sale system to sell the puzzles in the cost recovery portion of that. And we'll continue to just provide updates and report back to you as we work towards the June 13th event at River Oaks, which is the large unveiling. And happy to answer any questions on that if you have them. It's just moving along rapidly, though.
All right, any questions on this? I will just mention for the EDA, the council met in a workshop last week, I believe it was, to start kind of trying to pare down, I stress the word trying to pare down the different who's going to be in it and what things that we want to highlight. Now, of course, he'll be the ultimate one to kind of put it all together and then share it with us. But so that is just something that was going on. So I encourage you, if you have some thoughts and want to share ideas, plan on attending that event at River Oaks if you're interested, just to kind of hear and see what he does with other communities on this project, because I think it'll be kind of cool to see this come to life and in a puzzle highlighting what Cottage Grove has to offer. So, all right. So with that, do you need that was
Nothing-
just
no
for
action
comments?
is-
Yeah,
yep,
that's what I thought.
It's just a report.
Okay. All right. So any?
I do have a
Yeah,
question
absolutely.
here.
Mr. Cheetah.
So I guess looking at the list of people, I can't help but notice that 6 of the first 7 on the list are current elected officials. I guess I don't want the impression that this is a city-funded reelection campaign piece. And I know 2 of you are sitting here, so I don't want to
No, you're fine.
attack you here, but I guess that's not what I was hoping this would be when we approved it last month. I was hoping it'd be more of a look into our past and our history and who we are. And so I guess that's not something I'm thrilled about.
Do you want to respond, or I can?
It's up to you,
respond?
Mayor.
Oh,
I mean-
actually, I'll start with our administrator, Jennifer Levitt.
Yeah.
Well, Mayor, members of the EDA, obviously that was a really lengthy conversation that we had with the council. One of their questions that they asked us as staff was to give them feedback from what other cities had done across the country. What we noticed as a trend was the current council was present. I will indicate too in that workshop session, that decision to include themselves was one of the very last items that they considered. There is the thought of the historical people versus the historical place. So for example, I'll just make up, for example, if you're putting the Cedarhurst Mansion as the place, do you have the people associated with it, or do you provide more diversity? So the thought process was, if we were identifying the historical place, and we could tell the story and the people behind the place, we would not add the people, so that you could have more diversity of people and places that represented Cottage Grove. So that was the direction in regards to that. So you'll see more of the historical, like Ferber Barn. And so then you wouldn't necessarily have the people associated with the Ferber barn because the barn is represented. And so that was the thought process behind it, similar to how we talk about our agricultural heritage. You know, if you have the farm represented versus the people. You know, so those were the thought processes between how we tried to maximize telling our story in the places and the people.
Okay, EDA Vice President Olson, you had something you want to add?
I did, yeah, thank you. I think it's a relevant topic of conversation because in the workshop, you know, I brought that forth as well. I wasn't so sure that having the four faces of the current city council in the puzzle was necessary, although I did advocate for having Mayor Bailey absolutely be part of it. And one of the reasons for that is Mayor Bailey is tied currently with former Mayor Sandy Shealy for the longest-serving mayor in the history of our city, which has dramatic historical significance. And should he choose to run again this year, which I hope he does, and run successfully, he will be the longest-serving mayor in the history of Cottage Grove. So I think it absolutely makes sense to have Mayor Bailey be part of the puzzle. And in terms of the city council members, when I brought that up in the meeting and said, boy, I just don't know, the response Jennifer just gave you is exactly what staff gave, which is it's been sort of a common thing, similar to if you walk into a building like this one and you look at the nameplate on the side of the building, it indicates the name of the mayor and the council members who ratified the agreement to build this building. And it also indicates, you know, when the building was built, et cetera. So there's this push and pull between historical significance, which certainly can be modern history, because several of the items that we chose are from our past and several are from our present, because this puzzle will last in perpetuity. It's not going to be something that we just have for a year. We're going to have the rights to it forever. So there may be some more dialogue to have on that potentially, but I think for the most part, that turkey is cooked. And when Eric comes to town, you know, we can certainly ask his opinion on that as well. But there are several people who are currently part of the council, as an example, who've been there for quite some time. And so, you know, there may be a worthwhile conversation to have about the historical significance of that as well. But I think the issue itself is a tough one. And that's why I brought it up in the workshop for discussion. At the end of the day, I tend to lean towards trusting the staff recommendation for the most part, whatever we do, always asking questions and trying to get to the bottom of why. But if there's a reasonable or logical rationale, it is generally the way that I lean. But again, I want to acknowledge, I think it's a fair question.
Okay, did you want to add anything to that, or?
No, I mean, I guess that, I understand what your arguments are, I don't love it.
No, that's fine. And as I think you just said, for me personally, I wasn't advocating for myself to be.
No, that was all me. He wasn't.
But I will say that if you had a chance, and the public will eventually see, should all the names and everything, you know, come to fruition, we also included 3, I think, of the 5 current royalty for the ambassadors for Cottage Grove that are going to be on there. And the idea was there's a limit on how many people and things that we can have. Secondly, is when we looked at the size of the people on the puzzle, I mean, yeah, the name's going to be on the back of it or on the ledger, but when you look at the puzzle, you're not going to be able to go, oh, there's Mayor Bailey. At least I doubt it, or anybody else on there. And then we did also incorporate, well, again, this is if everybody sticks, a former, I believe we did the former county commissioner who served for a very long time, Myra Peterson, and then we also incorporated our current county commissioner, Carla Bingham, because she'd also been on the council, she's also been a senator and so on. So we decided there were certain people that we thought and born and raised in Cottage Grove and kind of those kind of things too, similar to myself. So anyway, just to share with you. So as we were trying to go through and debate some of the different people that we were choosing to be on there. So, all right. Any other questions? All right, we'll move to 4.5 then, which is Business Retention and Expansion Program. And G, I believe you're taking us through this one too.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Members of the EDA, the Business Retention and Expansion, or BR&E program, is an effort to retain existing businesses and help businesses expand in our community. I'm sure most of you are probably familiar with these types of programs. Your official one was kicked off in 2017 in partnership with the University of Michigan. University of Michigan. You can tell I watched the championship game last night. University of Minnesota. Disclaimer, I am from Michigan originally. So after the original study was concluded, the economic development team at the time continued the program, creating work plans and priorities for years 2018 to 2021. Even with the COVID crisis, everybody did a fantastic job, and even though that caused enormous workflow interruptions, everybody still managed to keep those visits going forward, doing surveys and those types of things. 2022, 2023, we had some staffing changes and other projects which delayed the program and kind of delayed the visits and the annual review. However, now that everything seems to have settled down and the staffing changes have been resolved, it's time to resume the program again in 2024. And so what we're proposing is to review the current program with the board, what's been done in the past, what we think should be done going forward, and we'll discuss that with you in a workshop setting at your February 13th meeting. And this is a report only. We encourage you to just read your packet in detail about the draft report that's in there, and then we'll give you a lot of historical information at the next meeting, so then you can just kind of see how you would fit into that plan if you decided to go on the visits with us as well. Because it's really all about matching people with the visits, you know? So, happy to answer any questions.
All right, any questions on the BR&E program?
And it's just a report only, there's no action item.
Yeah, it's just to share. We've been doing this now for a while because other than as we EDA want to bring new business to town, we also want to make sure the existing businesses are being sustained, or at least we know what needs they have so we can try to address those needs.
Yes, we definitely want to hear from you all at that workshop.
Yep, perfect. All right. All right, that was just informational. 5 is public hearings. We have none this morning. Other business, you do have the EDA calendar, which is at your desk there. Is there any EDA comments this morning that you would like to share or ask questions? All right. I did mention, just for staff, I talked to our two, we thought we were going to be outgoing members, but since we figured out with the change with COVID and such there, do not have to be outgoing members. So they both have agreed that they would stay on for this next year. So I just wanted to mention that from a term standpoint. So thank you guys for all being on there and staying on with us. Sit 3 is response to previous EDA comments. I don't believe there were any from the last meeting. We do not have a workshop this morning. We have no additional presentations. So we are now all the way to adjournment. So who would like to make the motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn?
All right, so we have a motion by EDA Vice President Olson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Who said it down here? I heard all kinds of, all right, I'll go all the way to the end here, because I didn't catch you earlier. EDA member Scott, all right? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? We are adjourned.
Thank you all very much.